Hi, I'm Ash, and for my midterm video, do I even need to mention that this is a video? This is a midterm, I mean? We're gonna be talking about the record Heaven's Burning Teens by Some Girls, and what it means, what it does, why it's relevant. Heaven's Pregnant Teens is the 2006 debut full-length record by California band Some Girls. The five-piece consisted of a rotating cast of really legendary artists, namely American Nightmare Cold Cave vocalist Wes Isold, The Locust bassist Justin Pearson, and Rob Moran, guitarist of Unbroken. This record's specific lineup also included Sal Gallegos on drums and Chuck Roll on guitar. And Chuck Roll was in The Plot to Blow Up the Eiffel Tower. I can't stop listening to this album. It follows me. Teens is 25 minutes of squealing chords, pounding drum beats, and Isold's bleak and emotive vocals. More than being a good record, I think it's an album that makes a pretty clear argument. Across 13 tracks, the record contrasts religion and piety against the things religion condemns most: sex, drugs, violence, and despondency. It tells us why we seek out gratification, whether on earth or above, and what we get from listening to music that is the opposite. Heaven's Pregnant Teens lyrically lands somewhere between fiction and autobiography. In a post to his Substack, Isold reflects on his writing for Some Girls, saying, quote, "It was a very freeing band for me lyrically, whereas in AN I was feeling a little cornered by genre and theme. In SG, I wrote poems and words and dropped them onto the music. In this section, I'm going to give some examples of the kinds of stories Teens tells and the commentary that seems to come more directly from the band itself." In the same Substack post, Isold drops lyrics to Beautiful Rune, the album opener. The song is ripe for analysis, but I'm going to zero in on the way it represents a sort of middle-class American despondency. The lines, "The tears of flesh death burns, now a mis-centered mantelpiece in a porcelain urn," demonstrate concisely how tragedy gets packaged and covered up. Later in the song, he wails, "And all of us widowed wives, discussing dimensions in dream homes we hide." Read in tandem, these statements describe compartmentalization, a hiding place, or the need to conceal pain. Discussing dimensions of dream homes is aspirational. But this wife is already there. She's already achieved her dream, and it's not enough. In the face of this hurt and dissatisfaction, the album explores two options: dedication and piety in the hopes of receiving an award in the afterlife, or descent into drugs, sex, and self-destruction. Most of the album is about the latter, and about reckoning with faith while being at the bottom. "Another fuck in the pocket, I'm drunkest in the flood, 777, and I am puking devil's blood. Lord, do you love me?" screams Isold on "You'd Be Happier with Lower Standards." "Because it's too late to place faith in fate, I will pillage the village to rape," he says on Totally Pregnant Teens. There's plenty of drug use, some powdered nose and some stranger's skull-fucked head, boring people on cocaine, satanic gloom and barbiturate doom. So where is God on a record like this? Sure, there are allusions to religion, but it doesn't linger much on the actual practice of worship until the song Skull's Old Girlfriends, a blistering 50 seconds of rage and stuttered bass. The song depicts a speaker penetrating a sacred place, snaking my way as only serpents could to the holy house where your love's nailed to wood, but compares that stalking to worship itself. "But true and through, I'm obsessed with you. It's just God's way of keeping us outside of their insides." Showing deference for a higher power, love nailed to wood, and allowing it to occupy your mind is an act of vulnerability. But it's also a type of entering, of penetration, injecting your faith into an object. There's also, of course, the cover of Religion 2 by Public Image Limited. It rails against Christianity with a kind of vitriol almost unbefitting a new wave band, making Some Girls' cover feel sort of natural. The song argues against the greed of the clergy, a sin that itself probably lines up more with the sickened perverts and addicts on the album, but it also asks questions of the devotees who donate, who live thinking they're doing the right thing. He takes the money, you take the lies. This altruism, this temperance and servility, isn't getting you closer to salvation, and moreover, It's further selfish to give money to these institutions and refuse to align with the people outside in need of help, not for one race, one creed, one world, but for money. Effective, absurd. And then there's Deathface, the 9-minute epic that closes the album. It touches on practically every theme of the record. There's talk of worship and exaltation, where worship deceases its crud, comets falling from God's holy sky, and of misanthropy. I would smash the face of the world. The most pertinent motif is the question, who will fuck when the people are all gone? A sentiment that's echoed from the song Ex-Nuns, Dead Dogs, as we're pricked with the sand spurs of time, who will feed the dogs when the neighbors have died? In the final minutes, the song abandons language entirely and descends into total catastrophe. As the drums build into a torrent, Isolde repeats the word ape over and over and over. Humans are animals. We live and die. We have sex. We tell ourselves stories. Heaven's Pregnant Teens remains relevant 20 years on because we've looped back to these questions. On social media and in real life, we're witnessing a return of both of these lifestyles. Tradcath influencers pushing conversion and indie sleaze revivalists romanticizing the 2000s party scene. TikTok is inundated with funk edits of holy crusaders, while Instagram archive accounts repost Cobra Snake photos from dingy New York clubs of the mid-aughts. I don't think that it's innately wrong to feel disturbed by modern culture and seek a respite from it in conservatism or nostalgia. Okay, I think the conservatism is kind of wrong. But in an age like today, with an encroaching climate apocalypse, threats of fascism and global war, who wouldn't want to build a time machine? The only other option, it seems, is death. So paradoxically, in hoping to escape death, these subcultures worship death. Heaven's Pregnant Teens depicts people who live their lives in preparation for death. The pious Christians expect a reward in heaven. The hedonists build their own heavens on earth. At its end, though, the album doesn't come down on either side. It condemns both. It takes the idea of an afterlife of bliss as an ignorant fantasy and the embrace of drugs and sex as selfish depravity. So how should we live? Should we just suffer? In arguing against the lifestyles it portrays, it seems to conclude that to live that way is to suffer. To pray all day, to give all your money to the church, is suffering, and shooting up heroin all the time is suffering too. But that suffering is universal. Which raises the question then, okay, if we're all going to suffer, why care about how other people go about it? This is where I think we require some meta-analysis, because as far as albums go, this record doesn't feel like Eternal Euphoria. It doesn't feel like Meeting St. Peter at the Pearly Gates, and it doesn't feel like a hit of heroin. It feels like punishment. Sticking through it for 25 minutes, through these utterly pummeling landscapes, becomes a metaphor for the act of living. For someone like me, who has returned to this record over and over again, it's because I've found beauty in that struggle. Which is not to say that I don't legitimately enjoy these songs, but that the fact that I do illustrates that escapism isn't the only solution. Engaging with extreme music is not unlike engaging with horror media. When you watch a horror movie, you endure something unpleasant to experience what I would consider two reactions. There's the jump scare, the adrenaline release, and the dread, the fear before the scare, and moreover, the empathetic fear of watching another person suffer. When we watch a movie, the scares provide a chemical release that keeps us gripped, but it's that dread that keeps a film sticking in your mind for weeks. We've now seen a rise of jump scare-free horror that entirely depends on unease. The jump scare corresponds to the monster, the subject. When you're jump scared in a movie, it's usually because there's some big, scary creature, that's coming towards you. It causes that animalistic, I hate to divulge into evolutionary psychology because I think a lot of it's not real, but yeah, that very, very innate shock response. But dread relies on the object, not on you being scared, but on witnessing someone else being scared. Many, many bands try to be the monster. I'm a grindcore fan. I'm not at all unfamiliar with pitch-shifted, growly, gloopy vocals and blast beats that sound like automatic rifle fire. Teens embodies a victim. Isolde shrieks, he screams and wails these songs. He sounds afraid, powerless. That's what keeps me coming back. That's the same reason that people are haunted by films. When we embrace fear, we give up ourselves. We make music and we endure music to understand that we are apes. We are prey creatures. Our lives are marked by fear, but by embracing it, not by escaping it with prayer or substances, can we get closer to beauty. By acknowledging fear, by witnessing fear in other people, we build our empathy for others' suffering, as opposed to trying to live in a world where it doesn't exist. That, I think, is what draws people to noisecore and to the kind of more emotional end of the sort of extreme music sphere. For me especially, trying to seek catharsis in that kind of music has given me not only a lot of like personal satisfaction, but a lot more empathy and connection to others.